Most people think controlling the Strait of Hormuz is about fleets, carriers, and massive naval power. It's not. It's about geography and a handful of islands that almost nobody can name. Because if the strait is ever blocked, the United States doesn't need to invade mainland Iran. It only needs to take control of a very specific chain of positions: Abu Musa, Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, Hengam, Keshem, Larak, and Hormuz itself. And once you understand what each of these islands does, you start to see something unsettling. This wouldn't be a war of conquest. It would be a surgical operation to reopen the global economy. Let's start with the first layer most analysts ignore. Iran's real power in Hormuz doesn't come from ships, it comes from denial. Fast attack boats, mines, anti ship missiles, drones, all dispersed, all mobile, all difficult to track. But none of that works in isolation. It only works because of positioning. Take Abu Musa. This island sits almost perfectly in the center of the strait. From there, Iran can deploy radar systems, anti ship missiles, and surveillance assets that effectively see everything that enters or leaves the Gulf. It's not just an island, it's a sensor tower. Now combine that with the Greater and Lesser Tunbi Islands, positioned further north. Together, they create overlapping fields of fire. Any tanker passing through is not just being watched, it's being targeted from multiple angles. And suddenly, you don't need a large navy, you just need to make the strait too dangerous to use. But here's where things escalate, because Iran's real strategic depth doesn't come from those smaller islands. It comes from Keshem. Keshem isn't just another island, it's massive, over 1,500 square kilometers, big enough to host air defense systems, missile batteries, logistics hubs, even underground facilities. If Abu Musa is the eye, Keshem is the backbone. From there, Iran can sustain long-term operations, resupply, rearm, hide assets. And that's what makes any attempt to reopen the strait so complicated, because you're not just dealing with scattered outposts. You're dealing with a layered defense system anchored to a large fortified island. Now add Larak and Hormuz Island into the equation. These sit right at the narrowest point of the strait. This is where things get uncomfortable, because at its tightest, the strait is only about 33 kilometers wide, with actual shipping lanes even narrower. From these positions, Iran can deploy anti ship missiles with extremely short flight times, meaning reaction windows collapse. A tanker doesn't have minutes to respond, it has seconds, and suddenly insurance markets spike, shipping companies hesitate, oil prices explode, not because the strait is fully blocked, but because it might be. That's how choke points really work. So if the United States wanted to reopen Hormuz, what would it actually do? Not a full invasion, not regime change, something much more precise. First phase: blind the system, electronic warfare, cyber attacks, long range strikes. The goal wouldn't be destruction, it would be disorientation. Take out radar, disrupt communications, create uncertainty, because once Iran loses situational awareness, those islands become isolated. Second phase: air dominance. Carrier strike groups in the Arabian Sea, air bases in Qatar, the UAE, possibly Saudi Arabia, stealth aircraft like F-35s and F-22s targeting air defenses, drones saturating the area. The objective: make sure nothing Iranian flies or effectively defends, because without air cover, those islands become exposed. Third phase, and this is where it gets serious: seizing the islands, not all of them at once. That would be chaos. Instead, priority targets: Abu Musa, the Tums, Larak, rapid amphibious assaults, Marines, special forces, possibly airborne units, executed within hours, because speed is everything. The longer it takes, the more time Iran has to react and escalate. But here's the problem most people don't consider. Taking small islands is one thing, holding them is another. Because once those positions fall, Iran still has Keshem, still has the mainland, still has missiles, and now it has incentive to escalate. Ballistic strikes, drone swarms, mining operations, maybe even attacks beyond the strait. And this is where the real risk appears, because what starts as a limited operation can expand very quickly. So why would the United States even consider this? because the alternative might be worse. If the Strait of Hormuz is blocked for a prolonged period, oil prices don't just rise, they spike violently. $120, $150, even $200 per barrel isn't unrealistic. Global inflation surges, supply chains fracture, Europe suffers, Asia suffers even more. And suddenly, this isn't a regional crisis. It's a global economic shock. And here's the key insight most people miss: the US economy is more resilient to energy shocks than most. It has domestic production, strategic reserves, alternative supply lines, but its allies? Not so much. Japan, South Korea, India, much of Europe, they depend heavily on Gulf energy flows. So reopening Hormuz isn't just about oil, it's about maintaining the entire global economic system. But invasion isn't the only option, and this is where things get interesting. Alternative 1: naval escort dominance, massive coalition fleets escorting tankers through the strait, constant presence, constant deterrence. But this is risky because one successful strike, just one, and the entire system collapses again. Alternative 2: economic warfare, sanctions, financial pressure, isolation, trying to force Iran to back down without direct conflict. But history shows this takes time, and markets don't wait. Alternative 3: covert disruption, sabotaging Iranian capabilities without open war, cyber attacks, special operations, internal destabilization, plausible deniability, but limited reliability, because you're not removing the threat, you're just managing it. Which brings us back to the uncomfortable conclusion. If the strait is truly blocked and global pressure builds, the fastest way to reopen it isn't diplomacy, it isn't sanctions, it's control. Control of the islands, control of the choke point, control of the flow. And once you see the map, once you understand how those 7 islands connect, you realize something most people don't. This isn't hypothetical. It's a plan that already exists, refined, simulated, updated, waiting. Because in geopolitics, the most important battles aren't always fought over countries. Sometimes they're fought over small pieces of land that control everything else.